Yo, chat. What is going on? All right. It's a Saturday night. Wow. That's how you know I'm out of touch with reality. It is not Saturday, it is Wednesday. I don't know why I said Saturday. But anyway, it's a Saturday night. By the way, guys, let me know if like the volume's good for y'all and everything like that. But basically, it's this nice Wednesday night, Thursday night. Jesus. Oh my god. I'm clearly tired, if you can't, may or may not tell. But anyway, Thursday night, we got some videos to react to. We got FNAF theories to react to. I've been out of the game recently, and, just life stuff. But yeah, and I'd rather not make a separate video for each. But yeah, we're gonna be reacting to them all in one. Nice little marathon. Shouldn't, better than that, saves me time. And plus, you guys get to, I get to react with you guys in real time. You guys get to react with me in real time. If you may or may not have seen the video. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And then afterwards, we'll chill, watch some other videos, and just have a good time. Do whatever. Just gonna put that there. Cool. All right. Yeah. So I guess we're gonna start first with FNAF's new video, the FNAF mystery that was unsolvable until now. Now I have a feeling I know what this is about because I've been seeing a theory going around regarding sister location, and it has to do with the desk. But we'll see. Maybe it's something else, but we'll see. We will see. If it is the theory I'm thinking of, then oh boy, we may need to have a chat. But Who knows? I could be wrong. Anyway, let's go.
8 years ago, Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location introduced a whole new roster of characters and a ton of new plot points to the games. Despite the game looking super complex, the story was pretty straightforward, and a lot of the mysteries have since been solved. But what if I told you nearly 2,800 days later, there's one mystery that's been right in front of our faces that has yet to be solved until now. Make sure to subscribe and let's get started. Throughout Security Breach, Ruin, and Help Wanted 2, there's been a lot of weird references back to Sister Location. With Mike's room showing up in Security Breach, the scooper at the end of Ruin, and now the Sister Location elevator at the end of Help Wanted 2. And that's just to name a few. I think it's pretty obvious that there's some big connection to Sister Location that we've been missing. And it feels like Scott and Steelwool are desperately trying to tell us what it is. Well, I think it goes back to this one line from Sister Location that's been bothering
before you crafted it, right?
Now. 1 year ago, before Ruin or Help Wanted 2 was even released, I decided to go live on my channel and play Sister Location. And it was on this stream that I called out that one specific line and how much it was bothering me.
I don't recognize you. You are new. I remember this scenario.
I knew it!
However, there is a space under the desk.
Knew it.
Someone before you crafted it into a hiding place, and it worked for him.
It's so interesting also that there was someone here before us. Baby.
To those of you who have not read the books or are not familiar with the books, Dittophobia features a kid named Rory who goes down to Sister Location. So I used to think that it was talking about him. But I now realize that cannot be the case due to the description of Sister Location in that story, which doesn't align with the time period of the games. So it can't be Rory. But Jeremy was a technician, and I assume that's where he's going with this. Or not Jeremy, Cassie's dad. She was a technician.
We even mentions that it was a him, and they created a hiding space. It's like, that feels like such a thing. It's like, come on, this is what I'm trying to tell you. There was someone here before, you know? It feels so,
Now, you could chalk it up to just some guy who came down there and had to hide from the Biddy Babs, but I don't know.
So right in front of our faces, but I don't know what it means. In Sister Location, we play as Michael Afton, exploring the underground bunker and eventually getting himself scooped. But this speech heavily implies that there was someone there before us, with Baby making a big deal of the fact
Pretty sure it confirms that, but whatever.
That she doesn't recognize us, but she remembers this exact same scenario happening with someone else.
I don't recognize you. I remember this scenario. However,
this speech has been on my mind for so long now because it feels so intentional and specific. Throughout the game, we learn about a bunch of people who never made it out of the bunker.
Funny story, a dead body was found in this vent once. Okay, so not that funny, but
even the two technicians that we meet on night 4 don't make it out alive. But one person who Baby mentions in her speech was able to create that hiding spot and made it out alive.
And it worked for him.
We even hear the Biddy Babs talk about this one specific person once we get into the hiding space.
Is it the same person?
I think they say, is this the same person as well?
Is this the same person?
Is this the same person? It's like, who is this person?
I've been trying to figure this out for years.
Like, oh, there was someone here before me. This chunk of the game makes...
But I don't think that it's the guy who you think it is. That's the thing. So this doesn't really help me. But who knows? Maybe it will help me. Let's react to it.
It's a pretty big deal out of the one person who was there before us. Baby even reveals that it was a him. So who was this person? Last year...
He's him.
When Ruin came out, we were introduced to a brand new character named Cassie, and throughout the game, we actually learned a lot about her. But there was one character that you could argue we learned even more about: Cassie's dad. We learned that his favorite character is Bonnie. We learned that he went missing, and we learned that he's a Fazbear engineer. It's pretty widely believed that Cassie's dad was the Bonnie bully from the Bite of '83. Mostly because Cassie's dad's favorite character is Bonnie.
The only evidence is the mask, and that mask is kind of a linchpin, which is why it's such a strange theory. Because most theories in FNAF have a bunch of evidence, but this one, it only has one real piece of evidence, and that evidence just happens to be a linchpin.
Cassie associates the Bonnie
That's what
mask
makes it
in
cool.
Ruin with her dad, and then in Help Wanted 2, Cassie's dad sees the mask again with the words,
Yeah,
"This
he gets the only line of dialogue from the character is that mask. So that's why it's a linchpin.
looks familiar." And if
can't
Cassie's
really-
dad
you
was
have to
roughly
you have to jump through a lot of hoops and make a ton of leaps in logic to deny that. But you don't have to accept it.
a teenager when the Bite of 83 happened, that would make him pretty old by the events of Ruin, which means he's probably been a Fazbear engineer for a while now. And I think the person who went down to the sister location bunker created that hiding space
Someone before you crafted it into a hiding place,
and made it out alive all those years ago
and it worked for him.
was Cassie's dad.
I
Need more
knew it.
proof? One of the things about Help Wanted 2 that
Yes, I
everyone
do.
is pretty sure of is that we play as Cassie's dad. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing what we know now, let's look back at the first trailer for Help Wanted 2.
Welcome back for another week of career fulfillment and minimal social interaction.
The trailer takes place in the sister location elevator with
Not the actual look. You know, this is a VR game. So I don't know if hand units lines here are like in relation to the game or the actual location itself. Like it could just be a gameplay thing.
hand units saying "Welcome back for another week," implying that Cassie's dad worked at or at least visited the sister location bunker at one point.
Or
we even
play
see
tested the
Faz
game.
wrench panel from Ruin in the elevator. And in Ruin, we learned that Cassie's dad had a Faz wrench.
A
Yep.
Faz wrench. It's just like my dad's.
We also see a few random sister location minigames show up in Help Wanted 2. And I think this is also because Cassie's dad has been there. He's reliving his experience working and fighting off the Funtime animatronics. In the Ballora minigame, if you start crawling out of bounds, the Biddy Babs start chasing you saying these specific lines.
Knock, knock. Someone is inside. We will see you again soon.
The same
The same lines for the desk. Yeah.
lines that you hear while in the hiding space in sister location. The Biddy Babs don't show up in this section in sister location, so having them show up in Help Wanted 2 while saying these specific lines feels intentional. But the
See, you know, like, do you guys notice most of his wording here? It feels intentional. It feels like I get it and all, but that's not enough. Just like that's not enough for me. That's not enough for me. I'm sorry.
The ultimate need more proof is this. Throughout Help Wanted 2, the animatronics are very aware of who
All
we
right.
are,
Lock in. We're leaning in close.
commenting that we look like we have kids,
You look like you got kids.
and saying things like, "What makes you so special?"
What makes you so special?
This mostly happens with Moon, Mystic Hippo, and Baby. But Baby specifically says one line that no other character in the entire game says. 3 words.
I recognize you.
Wait, no. Because in sister location, she says she doesn't. Oh, wait, because that's my. Ooh. Oh, shoot. See, oh no. Ah, shit. Okay. That's pretty okay. That I don't like that. See, fuck. No, it's because the player it's Cassie's dad and she says she recognizes us. But in sister location she says she doesn't, but that's because we're playing as Michael and not this guy. Oh no. Oh my god. Oh my god.
This is a direct callback to the beginning of the speech where Baby mentions the person who built the hiding spot in sister location.
I don't recognize you.
Even her delivery of the line, "I recognize you," feels like the direct antithesis of her line from sister location.
I don't recognize you. I recognize you.
Why would Baby recognize Cassie's dad? Because I think she saw him when he was down in the bunker. Why would Scott and Stewell reference back to this specific moment in Sister Location? Because I think Cassie's dad was the one Baby was talking about who built that hiding spot in the bunker and made it out alive.
And it worked for him.
On top of all of that, at the end of Help Wanted 2, a game where we play as Cassie's dad, we're met with the Sister Location elevator. This is one of the most shocking and random moments in all of FNAF, but it would make sense if Cassie's dad had memories of going to the bunker. The connections between Sister Location and Cassie's dad feel super intentional, but I've been trying—
That's actually a good point. Yeah, that's a good point, because this game is based off memories. But some of these memories also belong to Mimic, who is not Baby. So, yeah.
Trying to figure out is how this contributes to the larger story. I guess the question is, why does it matter? Well, I have a few ideas. If Cassie's dad really did work in the Sister Location bunker, then he might have found out about all of the terrible things that William Afton was doing.
There's no way. There's no shot. There's no shot. He's an adult at this time. He would have been, no. He's a kid in 1983. Let's assume 12 just to be generous. Sister Location is after FNAF 1, which is at least 2 years later. 10, sorry, which is at least 10 years later, so he's at least 22. He would have, and if he found him, he would have ended William right then and there, but he couldn't because he was in Springtrap and routing on.
Probably saw the scooper in the bunker and figured out what was going on. And since the dolls representing the missing kids are called memories in Help Wanted 2, maybe this part of Princess Quest is Cassie's dad putting the memories of what he witnessed all those years ago to rest. Maybe he feels guilty for not doing more to stop William. I think another possibility is that the story of Cassie's dad aligns with the Candy Cadet story from Help Wanted 2. In the story, we hear about someone who, when they were younger, entered a dark forest and was almost eaten by a witch but made it out alive.
Now let me tell you a story about a young woman who, when she was little, was led into a dark forest by a witch and almost eaten.
Then, years later, when they were an adult, they entered the dark forest again willingly.
When she had grown, she sought revenge on the witch and entered the forest again willingly, this time with the confidence of age and experience.
This could line up with how Cassie's dad went down to the bunker when he was younger, but was one of the lucky people to make it out alive. Then, when he was older, went back again willingly in Help Wanted 2. Not every detail lines up, obviously, but it's not impossible. I have a few more ideas that relate to the scooper and mixes, but I think I'm going to save that for a future theory. So make sure to subscribe so you get notified when that comes out. I know this was a shorter video, but whether you agree with the theory or not, I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching. See you in the next one.
Well, see, here's the problem. Yeah, try and give me an ad, YouTube. I dare you. I dare you.
Yes, there are.
I didn't think so. I can't really there's not. I don't really have a problem with it because of those 3 words that Baby said. She directly says, "I recognize you," and we are playing as Cassie. Sorry, I've been moving the mic. She directly says, "I recognize you." And we are playing as Cassie's dad, meaning she recognizes Cassie's dad from where? Well, the only thing that makes sense would be an unnamed character from Baby's introduction game. I can't really... I don't have a better option, so sure, yeah. Good theory. Good theory, FNAF. Now, Rightist, what do you have? You know what? Here, let's watch this is out of order. Let's do his previous one first. Oh, no, this is the previous one.
Yes, there are even more Five Nights at Freddy's books, and we're here to talk about them. Today we embark on the journey of chronicling every piece of timeline-relevant lore I can find in the Tales from the Pizzaplex book series. Now, I know that some of you are thinking, well, all of the lore is relevant because these books take place in-game, but
yes, sir,
we're going to have that conversation too. So, Slices, put on your aprons and let's bake some literary analysis.
They're in the game.
You know, it really doesn't have to say theory. So, what did I mean by that last remark? Similarly to the Fazbear Frights debate, there's a significant significant chunk of the fan base that believe all of these stories to not be separate stories, but in fact exactly what happens in the in-game timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yes, sir.
Especially since in the books it's established there are multiple pizzaplexes, so not all of these stories necessarily need to take place at the same one. The evidence used for the side of the argument that the books are in continuity with the games are typically what Scholastic has said about the books, what Scott has mentioned, and the contents of the books themselves. Scholastic has...
Hey, well, that's pretty. I would say that's pretty good evidence, don't you think?
describe these books as taking place within the setting and universe of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Set in the world of the latest games. That only means one thing. It's in the world of the games. It's in the game world. It's in the games.
Exploring uncharted corners of the game's canon and things like that. I myself have argued against these lines in the past, and the best way I could explain how is with an analogy. When the Mario movie was coming out, the Universal website promoting the movie described it as a movie that takes place within the setting of the Mario games. And that's a true statement. Those movies take place in the Mario games setting. But nobody would argue that this movie takes place within the same continuity.
No. Listen.
When the Mario movie was coming out, the Universal website promoting the movie described it as a movie that takes place within the setting of the Mario games.
Bingo. There's the key word. The setting of the Mario games. Tales from the Pizza Scholastic email. This says it's set in the world of the latest games. That's different than the setting. The world of the latest games is very different from the setting. Semantics do matter here.
And that's a true statement. Those movies take place in the Mario game setting. But nobody would argue that this movie takes place within the same continuity of the Mario games. That doesn't make a lot of sense with what both the games and the movie establish as lore. And that's the key here, because taking place within the same setting as something doesn't mean it takes place within the same continuity. After all, fanfiction takes place within the same setting as its source material, and that's obviously not canon. But to go even more officially, The Silver Eyes, a series of books which everybody pretty much agrees do not take place in the games, do take place in the setting of the games. Five Nights at Freddy's, the characters of Freddy's,
Sorry guys, I had to text someone. Texting. Actually wait, hold on. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. right, we're back. Holy. God damn it. We're back and I'm getting a fucking phone call. I'm streaming, dog. All right. Ah, sorry about that. You guys got a nice look at my desktop. Wonderful.
And Fazbear exist, so
We
do
got
the
Mr.
locations.
Rightos.
These are the same settings, but different stories told within them. So, what of the content itself? Well, much of the argument comes from the fact that there are one-to-one locations that carry over from book to game, and that there are characters from the books that carry over one-to-one as well, namely Gregory and the Mimic. Many people argue that since these locations and characters line up so exactly with the games, they might as well be considered to be in the same continuity. And that's a valid argument. I totally understand the camp of people who believe these books to be in the same continuity of the games. It does make a lot of sense, regardless of what I think. So with all this debate, what has Scott said on the matter? Of course, a whole bunch of nothing. In fact, within the past few months, somebody faked an email from Scott Cawthon confirming the books to be in continuity, which then
I love it when people... Oh, see, FNAF is the only franchise where people are so desperate for like lore and stuff, they will fake stuff from the creator. Maybe this happens in other fandoms, but oh man, I have never seen it this bad.
prompted to have Scott come onto the internet on that Reddit post and leave a comment. He confirmed that the email was fake and then
He had to leave. We're on a help wanted. Oh, ho, ho. Looks like we got a guess. What up, Mango? That is like literally only in FNAF. It got so bad that he had to make a Reddit post where, oh my lord, we're on help wanted theory. We're talking about Tails.
continued with, concerning what people have been saying about the canonicity of the books, yes, that is correct.
And Scott, I hate you. I hate you for like this is such a non-answer. He's a troll. He's a fucking like he's a troll. Bro, he look at what he says. So let me take this opportunity to be as clear as possible. There's the intent. He is intending to be as clear as possible. Keep that in mind. He then goes on to say, concerning what people are saying about the canonicity of the books, yes, that is correct. That is a non-answer, which means he was not clear as possible, which means he did exactly the opposite of what he was intending to do, which means he's a troll.
A classic Scott troll. Literally,
Thank you.
everyone was saying, I think the books are
It's
in
a
continuity.
troll.
I think the books are not in continuity. And Scott said,
Grown
referring
man
to what everyone is
trolling
saying,
little kids.
yes, thanks, Scott. Gloriously unhelpful as always. So, regardless of where you land on this,
Yeah,
what
he says, "Let me be
actually
clear," and then he's
changes
not
in
clear.
the timeline if these books are in continuity 100%?
They are in the...
Well, there are some dates that get weird and don't line up super well, but the main changes to the timeline itself, if the books are in continuity, would be that the Mimic's
storyteller.
kill count is higher than we see in game,
Yeah.
and that Edwin Murray created the Mimic, and
Which he did. Like, what says that he didn't? And yes, Scott trolled MadPat for years. Like, that was their whole dynamic. Like, how...
other than that, I can't see a lot of direct changes to the timeline if the books are in continuity.
There is one, and it's in the storyteller, but that's not... We don't talk about that.
So, going into this, where do I land? What do I think of these books and how they can help us solve the FNAF timeline? Personally, I do not think there's compelling enough evidence to definitively say these books are within the same continuity of...
How? Dude, no. Raito... No. So... Jesus Christ. So, in-game... I swear to God he did. He definitely did that. But look at this. The GG, look. So in the story GGY, we're told that GGY gets the highest scores, exceptionally high scores on the arcade games, and his name is GGY. We are also told that his friend Axel plays, and his name is ABC. Now, can you read this screen right here and tell me what you see here and what you see here? Or how about this one? Oh, look, there's GGY right there. Or what about this one? Oh, same thing. Here, you know what? Let's have every arcade machine up here. Oh, wow. Look at this shit. GGY, 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 GGY. It's everywhere. So, can you blame me for saying, bro? And then we have the Bobby Dots, which describes an identical Pizzaplex, identical to the games.
Of the games, and I don't feel comfortable making that claim. So personally,
why? How about the Mimic then? The Mimic, described in the epilogues, wears mascot costumes, mimics voices, kills people, and is weird looking. We see exactly that in Ruin. They even went so far, they could have just not made Mimic wear a mascot costume at all, because that's such an obscure and minute detail, but they do it anyway. Why would they do that? If they wanted to separate the books from the games, they're doing a very bad job at it. Do you see what I'm saying here? Yeah, how does Scott keep getting away with this shit?
I'm going to treat the Pizzaplex books the same way that we treated Fazbear Frights, and to an extent the Silver Eye.
Hold on, who's we? Because I say, because Rightos, I'm Stitchline, right?
I'm not taking these stories as direct things that happened in game, but rather these stories are meant
Don't
to
say
inform
parallels.
us about things that could have happened in the same
Oh.
universe, and teach us about some characters that may cross over.
No.
So let's do it. And there's a lot of short stories in this series, and previously when we did
I'm
Fazbear
acting like
Frights
such a
and Tales from the
child right
Pizzaplex,
now, but this
I
is
just kind of pointed
infuriating,
out the
man.
main issues of lore from those books and moved on. The nature of these stories kind of make it easier if I just briefly go over each story that seems relevant, and I'll pin things as we go. But judging from the length this video is,
Dude, they all happen in the games. It's just that, So wait, can I ask you this? If they really wanted to disconnect Tales from the games, why is the very last story, why is the last story in Tales, why does it clarify FNAF 4 if it has nothing to do with the games? Oh my god.
probably going to be, it's going to be a two-parter. So in this part of this little mini-series,
the last story in Tales literally describes FNAF 4. Get it as
mimic story in Tales from the Pizzaplex. So all of the other things these books teach us about, because a big majority of these books
I'm gonna die.
is
I want to watch Budokai Tenkaichi 4 because this is infuriating me.
focused on the mimic. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, I've got terrible news for you. You're not going to learn today. And one more note before we get into it. When I did the lore video,
let there be lore.
And Fazbear Frights, I kind of forgot to do the lore corkboard, or as I'll be calling it going forward, the lork board. So here's the lork board.
The lork board. I will put on the trailer later because I want to watch that again. That shit was golden.
Here's the silver.
Dude, I fucking cream my pants.
Prize and
Pause.
Fazbear Frights.
Don't
Now
cancel
we
me.
can start
Don't demonetize me, YouTube.
doing Tales from the Pizzaplex. And one final PS. Not all the stories are going to be mentioned from Tales from the Pizzaplex
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're cherry picking.
because some of them are just not relevant to the timeline. Perfect
Yeah, base Gotenks, Gogeta, and Vegeta. We
Example,
get
Bleeding
all,
Heart.
yo,
Just-
Dragon Ball fans, we ate today. We fucking ate. Yum, 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 yum. bro. That yo, when I don't find myself losing to I'm not gonna lose to someone who transforms with such a ridiculous pose. Like, bro, what Vegito has no chill and I fucking love it.
Disgusting story, really gross, very weird, not super important to the
That's
timeline.
so
I'm not gonna bring
Vegito
it up.
too.
Okay, finally, let's get into the stories. On the top of the list is Frailty, a story about a girl who has a
Frailty should actually strengthen your. Yeah. Oh, that hexagon at the
silver
end was
locket that
crazy.
she scrapes metal off of onto hospital patients to make them feel better. But in the end, she loses the locket and turns into a pile of scrap metal and grease.
Does that sound familiar? Because it should. Because it happens in Fazbear Frights. In fact, so wait. In fact, if Frights was not important, why is the first story in Tales a continuation of it? Like, do you see the logic I'm working with here? Well, like,
Does this sound familiar? This story is incredibly similar to To Be Beautiful.
oh, and guess what? That was also the first story in Frights.
Lockets are described in a very similar way, they function in a similar way, and some people think Eleanor might have been the one to give this locket to our main character, even though as far as I'm aware, Eleanor does not show up in this story at all. But to be
In the dream. In Jessica's dream, she shows up.
fair, our character does seem to be afraid of a junkyard, but is that because she found Eleanor in one, or because she knows she's made of junk metal? Who knows?
What? Bro, okay.
But is that because she found Eleanor? To be fair, our character does seem to be afraid of a junkyard, but
She's afraid of a junkyard. Now, for those who don't know, in the first story, the main character, Sarah, finds Eleanor in a junkyard. So, why do you think this person is afraid of junkyards?
But is that because she found Eleanor in one,
Clip
or
that.
because she knows she's made of junk metal? Who knows? Regardless, the locket is definitely made of Remnant, and this story doubles down on the idea that Remnant possesses healing properties. The next
It
story,
does.
Under Construction, doesn't have any specific moments, but it sets up a very specific recurring theme that we see in many of these stories.
Being unable to differentiate AR/VR from the real world.
That being the theme of somebody's consciousness being trapped within technology. It
Yes,
seems
sir.
as though in these stories, when somebody dies inside of an AR or VR machine, their consciousness tends to live on, at least in some way, for some time. Really quickly, in this story, our main character enters a VR machine that essentially gives her the perfect birthday party ever. But when she leaves, what she doesn't know and what we find out later,
Thanks.
she's still in the machine. So she goes to live her life still in this machine, and more adults start getting cancer, and more people start giving birth to these weird amorphous blob.
Yeah, bro, it's such a weird ass story. Like, it's so weird, but it is relevant.
And after a while, she realizes she might be in a machine, but as she's trying to get out of it, more and more of these blobs keep following her and surrounding her until eventually she
Yeah, the VR machines give you cancer for some fucking reason.
suffocates underneath them, but she doesn't die. She ends the story wondering how long it'll be until she dies. And in a separate story,
I know, it's
we
so
learn that this
messed
machine
up.
filled up with smoke because it wasn't finished. It was still under construction. So she probably died from suffocation
So
of that
messed
smoke.
up.
And that's why she was dying in game. But in the game, she hasn't died yet. So again, this story very early establishes even if your body dies, as long as you're in some kind of VR or AR device, your consciousness may live on. And it's worth noting at the beginning of the story, one of the characters calls something like this.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second, chat. Can you hear me?
Oh, never mind. I was fucking following your stream. No way do they give you cancer. Hold
Bro,
on.
I'm being dead ass. They literally give you cancer.
Oh shit, my phone's on.
Dude, they legit just straight up, bro, if you're in the machine for long and you just get cancer.
Sorry.
It's some
I gotta keep
bullshit,
it
bro.
down. How the fuck?
Dude, that's literally it. Like they just give you, I don't know why. It's so messed up and it doesn't make any lick of sense. But that's what
Why did Scott write that?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
Excuse
what,
me.
Scott? What's going through your mind that you write this shit?
Here's the thing. I've been fucking confused on their writing for ages. So much so that I try to avoid it unless a game theory talks about it, and
Yeah.
even then I still will go into those. But it's like, excuse me, Scott?
It's like, what the fuck?
This is what I get for not touching the books. I'm unaware to Scott's cancerous VR machines.
Dude, it is, oh my god, it's hilarious, man. It is so funny.
I didn't mean to start yelling in my house the moment
gets
you told me
worse.
that, but that
It
is
gets
so
worse.
blasphemous that I couldn't. What? How does it get worse?
You'll see. I think he'll explain in this video. Oh my lord. If he talk, there's one story I'm hoping he does talk about, because what the actual fuck is the end of this story? You'll see. Hopefully he does talk about it. But yeah. You'll see.
VR cancer.
You'll see. You'll see. I'll call you back.
Quantum immortality. So we'll put a pin in there because that's probably definitely
Quantum immortality? What? What? Like that? It doesn't. What?
this quantum immortality.
That's not a thing. It is, but like, what? Not in this sense.
So we'll put a pin in there because that's probably definitely important. The next story, Help Wanted, is a crazy story.
This story is fucked. They kidnap a man, gaslight him, and then murder him to make video games.
It's pretty much exactly the story of how Help Wanted as a game was created, or at least how the indie games that inspired Help Wanted were created. Essentially, this story sees Fazbear gaslighting a man into working for their company, making games based off of the things that may or may not have happened at Fazbear, and then they kill him at the end of the story.
That's literally what they do.
How do they do this? Well, it's very
so
interesting,
messed
and we
up.
see another version of it at the end of these stories in Didophobia. But we don't get
Okay, now Didophobia might actually be the most messed up, unholy, unnerving, unholy story in all of FNAF. Yeah, they do exactly that. They kidnap him, gaslight him, and then kill him. That's literally just what happens, yeah. No, they get a fake robot to stab him. Oh yeah, he thinks they gave him a fake life, a fake family, and a fake house. All with the help of illusion discs. He's not actually in a house, he's in a blank room. But he thinks he's a house because of the illusion technology. It's fucked up. Very. Yeah.
exact information. What we do get is that he is in a house controlled by Fazbear.
It's literally just Tom from One Piece. Yeah.
Robots on tracks and scary things and trapdoors and strings to emulate a sort of life for him and emulate these horrible nightmares. The thing is, obviously no one would be tricked by that, but it's established that there's some kind of thing making these things feel real. And a big central point of that is the smoke detector that he eventually breaks, and that's when he sees the illusion. It's interesting that this story sort of preludes Didophobia. We'll get into more detail.
No. Didophobia is very different and actually worse. Way worse. In fact, I will view it, and I'll die on this hill. I'll view it as the most fucked up story in all of FNAF. Yeah, because William is gassing children.
Details when we get to that story, but essentially in
Bro took the scarecrow slash Hitler route.
Hallucinations based off of real mannequins because of hallucinogenic gas coming
Oh,
from
and why is he gassing the children? He wants to test their fear levels.
the ceiling. And we look at this, if a smoke detector is on
Scott just said, let me write the most fucked up human being in the history of fiction, video games.
your ceiling, that's a perfect place to vent in gas. It's not a real smoke detector.
World War II.
Regardless,
Yeah.
the main information for the timeline here is twofold. One, Fazbear has the technology of either illusion discs, hallucinogenic gas, or probably both.
It was the discs, because it made a high-pitched ringing voice. The gas does not do that. The gas is exclusive to William Afton, but Fazbear Entertainment has the discs.
And two, the indie dev they hired already? The indie dev
Yeah,
they
we
hired
did
to
have
make
gas
these
bombs.
games, they tricked into doing so.
Fun fact, guys, weed was originally used in war. Or it was supposed to be. That was its original purpose.
With this technology, and then killed him when he was done, or when he found out.
I can just imagine someone throwing a grenade full of, like, evaporated marijuana. And then, like, it just explodes, and then all the soldiers just sitting there, they're like, so what were we fighting about and stuff? Kind of like that.
Too much.
It'd be hilarious, bro.
I have an old friend that I found in the store.
It would actually be hilarious.
Back, baby. The next story is Pressure, which is a wild story again because it features a roleplay section of the Pizzaplex that reenacts the horrible allegations against Fazbear. And at this point, even if I'm just a customer in this universe and Fazbear didn't do all these horrible
Pressure is actually also fucked up, but this is just friends being bad friends and being idiots.
Allegations. At this point, I just think they did because they are so open about it. Notably, this story, the kids are doing a reenactment of the Fazbear Frights location of FNAF 3, and one of them has to play Springtrap. And it's revealed that one of the creepy workers replaced the costume of Springtrap with a real Springlock suit.
Springlock
so he
suit.
could use the costume.
Like, why would you do that? Why? Like, whose head is so far up their ass that they replace a harmless costume with a notoriously deadly Springlock suit, which was so dangerous that it was discontinued? Logic.
Costume to go like kill a kid or something. So for one, Fazbear is doubling and tripling down on saying, hey, these are fake allegations, but let's embrace them, which is a weird thing to do. But two, where the fuck does this Springtrap actual Springlock suit come from?
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Some random Pizzaplex work.
That's what I'm saying. Why does a random Pizzaplex have a Springlock suit? They were all discontinued in the 80s. We're in the 2020s.
Named fucking Earl have the actual
maybe 2030s if you want to get technical.
A recreation of it that is a Springlock suit. Like, I know there are
Springlock
suits at the Pizzaplex according to these stories, but one that looks like Springtrap is crazy.
Like, why does there's a Springtrap? There's a Springtrap. There's a Springlock suit that looks like Springtrap but isn't Springtrap. How? Oh wait, FNAF AR. No. Because those aren't.
Part 1 is a very
I hate this series, man.
Argue that these books are within continuity because this story and its follow-up feature a lot of direct locations from the games and
direct, like identical.
But because it tells us so much about these locations, it's also worth bringing up here. For instance, it gives us the explanation that Sun and Moon were not the original daycare attendants, but were rather part of a stage performance, and they were shifted there to become the daycare attendant.
Yes, sir.
The reason the generators are in the daycare is to keep the power on, and the structures were already there, so they just threw the generators in the play structures, and I'm sure OSHA has no problems with that. The next one is GGY, and it's a
here's GGY. This is my favorite.
Massive one, because it goes into the backstory of everyone's favorite problem child, Gregory. Essentially, this story follows a child who is looking into this mystery centering around an arcade player going by the moniker of GG.
They're a hacker too. That's a big part. They're a hacker.
GY. And after doing some more digging, he finds out that the animatronics themselves have had their codes adjusted.
They've been hacked. Oh, this is my favorite part because here, guys, let's do some nice little logic here. Ready? So, we are told in the games about a mysterious figure called Patient 46. This person's a hacker. They hacked the Glam Rocks. They hacked the Pizzaplex. And they're manipulating Vanessa. We then get this story, which describes a character named Greg with unruly brown hair, a t-shirt, shorts, and a band-aid. Maybe not that last part. But the point is, this Greg person is a hacker at the Pizzaplex. They hacked the Glam Rocks, leaving G's and Y's in their code as a signature. And they also have a hacked play pass. Can you guess who Patient 46 is?
And the new code has G's and Y's all throughout it.
That's it. Oh!
So whoever this is very important. And eventually, Gregory, or Greg as we see in the story, ends up killing this kid who's been
Oh, now why would he do that? Why would he kill someone who's investigating this mysterious person?
looking really into what GGY is doing.
Yeah, now why would he do that? Why would he do that? It's kind of stumping me. Why would he do that?
In this story, it is exceedingly clear that Gregory is under the control of Glitchtrap. He calls himself the Wizard's favorite
Rabbit.
apprentice. He goes by the codename Dr.
Rabbit.
So
Like,
it seems
come
like the
on,
story
guys.
is telling us that patient 46 from Security Breach is Gregory.
Yes.
A therapy patient who was killing off therapists and seemed just pretty evil. Another thing worth noting is that if this story is correct, Gregory personally modified the codes of the animatronics. Nexi as a story isn't incredibly important, but it does bring up a pretty interesting topic. If you want to know what the story is about, just go watch Ron's Gone Wrong. I'm not saying it's plagiarized or anything, but like it's crazy how
It's
similar
pretty much the
stories
same
are.
story,
Anyway,
yeah.
I bring up this story because it's an example of an animatronic trying to become human. Essentially, the Nexi doll wants to look beautiful and perfect and doesn't. So it keeps begging the main character, Astrid, to fix her and make her look nicer, but eventually she begs Astrid to go to the Pizzaplex extra parts room and get all the parts necessary to make Nexi perfect. And they build basically a full new endoskeleton. And once they do, it's a
How? No, never mind.
that Nexi kills Astrid, puts Astrid's body over the perfect endoskeleton, and then Nexi implants her own programming into that endoskeleton. So she can be the perfect, beautiful girl. So again, I mainly bring this up for the point of recurring theme that animatronics want to become human. Drowning as a story has two things worth bringing up. One,
Don't you dare say the girl with the black hair, because that's not Cassidy.
it again doubles down on the idea of a character seemingly continuing to live.
No,
after
no, no,
the
no,
fun
no,
is
no,
done.
no, no,
A little-
no. That's not Cassidy. No, because Cassidy's not evil. No.
Clear on the timeline here, and it does seem like she dies at the end of the story in both the game and in real life, but there's a possibility here that
Oh.
her body dies immediately, but her consciousness is trapped for a long time. The other thing worth bringing up is that some people theorize the girl from Drowning, the
It's
ghost
not
or the
Cassidy.
spirit who's trying to kill this
It's
main
not
character
Cassidy.
could be Cassidy.
So Cassidy's just evil now? Alright, fine.
Admittedly, there's not a lot of evidence for this.
Thank
the main
you.
Topics that get brought up is that she's loosely compared to a princess, kind of, and that she's a girl associated with drowning. The only other one we have it being Cassidy. But if you want
What?
more information on why that is possible, just refer to the back half of this video. The next important story worth bringing up is B7-2. I didn't talk about B7 because
This
I
one is weird.
frankly, don't want to talk about either of them.
'Cause, like,
But
it shows that
B7-2
agony
is incredibly
beings
important to bring
can,
up, so we will briefly touch on it. Throughout the
be
story,
created
B7
without
Billy gets several
being killed.
modifications done to his body to become more like an animatronic, and he eventually kind of maybe dies. But it's revealed in the beginning of B7-2 that he didn't die. He's in fact rescued, and all of those modifications come off of his body in one piece. Billy himself starts doing physical therapy and begins the process of healing and getting some actual prosthetics to replace his missing limbs, but those older modifications still have some sort of consciousness.
Agony.
The consciousness of B7. And they're begging Billy to reattach. Eventually, his grandma falls victim to B7, and B7 begins to try to merge with Billy's grandma.
It's
until
very weird.
The grandma reveals she knew what was happening all along. She's been talking to B7 over the phone, pretending to not know it's not Billy, but knowing that whatever this is wants to hurt Billy. She herself was terminal and was going to die soon anyway.
Smart.
So she forces B7 to
W grandma, bro. W grandma.
finish merging with her, and then dies, killing B7 along with herself, essentially using her last dying abilities to kill B7 and save Billy. So why do I bring up this story? Because it establishes a
FNAF 6.
very important rule in this universe, that a consciousness
Agony beings can be made without being killed.
formed within the mind of someone can be separated from that someone and still persist.
Yes,
Think
sir.
Implications of this with someone like Vanny. With this
Never
story,
mind.
it could be implied that Vanny can be removed from Vanessa but still exist on its own. Perhaps that's why Princess Quest 4 works the way it does in Help Wanted 2. The idea that maybe Princess Quest 3 was beaten in Security Breach and Vanessa was
Oh,
free.
wait. That's actually a good idea. That is a good idea because we did free. You know what? Yeah, we freed Vanny. So Vanny shouldn't be a thing anymore, but that actually no, Help Wanted's a prequel, so never mind.
Of Vanny, but Vanny wasn't destroyed, and she lay wait in Princess Quest 4 until somebody good enough comes along to take on her persona. Maybe our character in Help Wanted 2 wasn't good enough, and that's why we see the ending we do at the end of Princess Quest 4. I don't know, that's heavy speculation. But as far as lore information, this story establishes that a consciousness can exist separate from the host it was created in. Our next story is Alone Together, which should
Yeah, and I like this one because it definitively explains Michael's nightmares. He's just getting spirit Wi-Fi, spirit Bluetooth.
because I've brought up this story like 10 times on this channel, and I don't want to give another goddamn summary of it, but the point of this video means I probably should. So very briefly, our main character is a boy who nobody likes and nobody wants to talk to, and mostly nobody does talk to. But for his school project, he wants to make a mechanical Turk. It's essentially a wooden box that back in the day was purported to be an automaton that you could play checkers against, but really it was a puppet that somebody was hiding inside of to pretend like it was an automaton to play checkers. He's not sure why he's so fascinated about it, but he eventually learns that these memories and wants to build this thing are not his own, but of a ghost that's been possessing him. His grandma
Nearby,
tells him that
not
spirits
possessing.
try to affect the memories and dreams of someone to communicate with them. So he hopes that by building this, or by finding the remains of this boy, then maybe, just maybe, he will be able to help this boy move on so he can stop having these visions and these dreams. So he eventually does find the body of the boy inside a mechanical Turk, inside a shed that no one really goes to. He himself then gets trapped and he realizes that body isn't some boy that's possessing him. That body is his own body. He's dead. And because his remains were undiscovered, he lost the memory of dying. He didn't know he was dead. He was wandering around the places that he spent time in during his life, not realizing that he actually died. But once he finds his body, all of his memories come flooding back, and he's able to find peace. This story is incredibly important for the rules of the universe because it brings up how ghosts seem to work within FNAF. It brings up that wandering spirits can travel through different places they spent while they were alive, not just stay where they died.
And that's what I think happened to Garrett, the bite victim. He lingers at Freddy's, the sanctuary.
It brings up that when the body goes undiscovered, a spirit loses its memories and may not even know it's dead. And it brings up that showing a spirit its own remains can help them find peace and possibly move on.
I guess you could say they're put back together.
So pins for all of that. And finally, for the non-mimic stories, we have Didophobia. It's that FNAF 4 story that I've also made a couple
Yeah, Didophobia time. Now, I may have to put like a... I may have to put like a warning on the screen before he summarizes this story, because this story is like this is like a different level of messed up. I didn't even know Scott was capable of thinking of stuff like this.
Essentially, some kid realizes he's in an endless FNAF 4 nightmare.
Yeah.
Where he relives the actual game of
It is
FNAF 4 during the night and
unbelievably
wanders
messed
around
up.
his house during the day. Eventually to realize that this is all fake and it's mannequins on tracks again, just like Help Wanted. But this time, after doing some exploring, our main character finds out that it's hallucinogenic gas being pumped into his room. And as he keeps exploring the facility, we find that the grander facility he's within is the sister location bunker. Eventually, he tries to escape, but he has to go back into the rooms he was held in to figure out like a better way to get out and maybe a key or something. And he instead hears an intercom that tells him life is better here. And it's honestly better than it was before he was stuck here. And he eventually agrees, turning the machine back on and going back to bed. And we as the reader find out that this intercom isn't even live, but a tape recording that's triggered to replay if he wanders too far. It's a terrible,
it's so messed up,
miserable story.
It is so messed up.
But it's great for lore. It introduces the idea of
lore,
hallucinogenic gas that I mentioned in Help Wanted, so put a pin there for that. And it
what
also
it
introduces the
confirms.
idea
Here's
that
what-
William
no,
Afton
no.
was
Here's what
doing
it
experiments very much akin to the FNAF.
It confirms that sister location is after FNAF 1 and that the nightmares are actually mannequins on moving tracks, not plushies.
4 game, or that the FNAF 4 game is based off of nightmares from somebody going through the experiments. There's a lot of ways you could square it away.
So we have the story, the gameplay, and then the concept of FNAF 4. The story of FNAF 4 is whatever. The gameplay is Michael's nightmares, and then the concept of FNAF 4 is what we see in Dinophobia. So yeah, like now that tells us what Michael was dreaming about.
It's very much worth mentioning that these chambers are linked directly to the sister location bunker.
They
That's
are.
all the stories that don't really have anything to do with the Mimic, or at least are very loosely connected to it. Like, sure, a lot of these stories are because the Mimic is infecting the Pizzaplex.
Yes. Yeah.
They don't focus on the Mimic, was the point. All the really Mimic-focused stories and the epilogues we'll cover next week. Regardless, what do you think of the information we've gathered so far? Anything I miss? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. In the meantime, if you missed the earlier timeline videos I've made, they're all in a playlist for your viewing right here. If you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to share it with #RightHeart. A huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, Slice.
Stay toasty, right toast. But we still got one more left for right toast. Overall, I would say this theory is great, other than the no, not in the games thing. That's like the only thing I got to gripe with, because it's a huge, it's a very big aspect of Tales.
The time is finally here. I've been making videos on videos of the full timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's and my process for making my own in-depth timeline. And like I mentioned at the start, I'm going to be using the bulletin board I made about more than a year ago when I tried to make a timeline without using any books, just the games up until Ultimate Custom Night. But because of what I just said, you realize this bulletin board is lacking in a lot of information. So why don't we make this bulletin board bigger? And now, let's add stuff to it. On today's video, we will be going over all the lore that I can
Help
pluck
Wanted,
out from Help
FNAF
Wanted
AR.
that I think is relevant for the timeline, and I'll be putting it on this board. I'll also be touching on Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery, the AR app, because after all, Help Wanted and Special Delivery kind of go hand in hand.
They
of course,
are,
we'll be
yeah.
adding Security Breach Ruin and Help Wanted 2.
Well,
as
AR is a
but
bridge from
they'll
Help
get their
Wanted
own
to
videos
Security
because
Breach.
I have a feeling this is going to take a while for these games. So for now, Slices, put on your aprons and let's do some lore scouting. And just one quick reminder, this bulletin board and its entire purpose is just to document factual evidence from the games with zero speculation. I think it's really important to ground yourself in what we know for a fact before we start speculating. So that's the purpose of this board.
Yeah, there's some things that you think are
going to be things that we're all pretty 99% sure of, like the name Glitch Trap, that I won't be putting on this board, for that very reason. Now, in case it's been a while since you've played Help Wanted, and to be fair, that game came out 5 years ago, almost to the day. Like, it's crazy how close this is coming out to the 5-year anniversary of Help Wanted. But I figured it's best to re-go over the story of the game and to refresh everybody so we're working on an even playing field. After all, back when we did the bulletin board for the Scott games, up until Sister Location, there wasn't really a story to go over, so we were able to do 2, 3, 4 games in one video because we just did the bullet points of lore. But Help Wanted Onward, literally every single game has some semblance of a story. So we should go over them even if we don't directly put that story on the bulletin board. The story of Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted is very meta, actually. An in-universe Five Nights at Freddy's VR game is being made, and it just got sent to our company, which we are a video game tester at. And it's our job to make sure the game is playable and ready to be launched. But as we make our way through the video game, we find these glitchy cassette tapes that the previous game tester left in the files. As we play the game and collect them, we learn that these tapes were left to document what was going on behind the scenes of Fazbear and that previous company, and document what was going on within the game itself. After all, they warn us of something that the girl who recorded them calls the anomaly. And as we collect these tapes, that anomaly we're being warned about grows stronger,
The mimic.
more clearly visible, and closer to us. As it comes into view, it appears to be a stitched-together felt costume styled to look like a yellow Bonnie. And that's much of the game. You play these mini-games and you collect tapes to then see
Why didn't you mention the part where Glitch Trap is mimicking Tape Girl's lines?
this image more clearly. Playing through the games, we encounter 3 different endings. Well, kind
like
of
he's
4.
factually
The main basic
mimicking
ending
her
you
lines,
get if
so
you
that's
beat
factual.
every single minigame and every single hard mode version of those minigames, after which you unlock something called Pizza Party. It's a weird, confusing maze of a level where you're
It's my favorite level because it confirms that William stuffed the children, not the puppet.
going through all these different set pieces, and eventually you get to the end.
That's not
where
even
your
biased.
reward
Like that,
is the
that's
back-
how is that bias? That's not even bias. That's just truth. Nowhere. Like notice how we have multiple occasions of Will stuff, but puppet stuff only has one. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that, guys?
back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, or at least something that looks like it. The curtain moves and you're beckoned behind the curtain by the anomaly, and it's here that you can get one of 2 endings. The main ending here, and the only ending with this branch for quite some time, is you listen to the anomaly and go behind the curtain. And once you do, it fades to black, and it fades up, and the anomaly is dancing to the Freddy's game performing a song, and you realize you're looking from the perspective of Freddy Fazbear. The implication here being that you got stuffed into the Freddy Fazbear animatronic suit. However, when
By a yellow Bonnie. Isn't that strange?
the Curse of Dreadbear DLC launched, another ending was added to this game. In this room, there's a fire exit that opens up and snow comes in of. If you go out that door, you can see the Pizzaplex being built across the street, and you're just in the middle of nowhere in the snow. Notably, this does imply that the Pizzaplex is built in the middle of nowhere surrounded by trees. The third possible ending is available if you collect every single hidden cassette tape in the games, in which the last one gives you the instructions to access this ending, where essentially you are warned that now that you've collected all the tapes, anytime you enter the lobby, there's a random chance that the anomaly will try to merge with your mind. And the tape gives us instructions that if we press a button, turn a lever, and I think pull a crank, essentially, we can eliminate the anomaly. Once
That
this
ain't how
eventually
that
does
works,
happen,
homie.
You have
Because Help Wanted canonically has a bad ending.
2 choices. You either listen to those instructions or you don't.
Actually, there's never a good ending to that game. Now that I think about it.
If you don't listen to the instructions or you do it incorrectly, you'll see your perspective begin to shift with the anomaly until you're looking at yourself at the computer. And then the game fades to black and you get the game over screen. Presumably, the anomaly took over your mind, and you're just put right back in the game. However, if you do the steps correctly, it doesn't get much better.
And it still takes over your mind. Like, we can't win.
Instead, you're transported into this metal-doored room with a lock and handprints of someone trying to escape, and then the slide opens up to reveal the anomaly on the other side. who shushes you and fades into the darkness. It's escaped, essentially. That's ending number 3. But I mentioned we kind of have 4 endings. The Curse of Dreadbear DLC
Vanity
added
mask
something that
thing?
feels very
Yeah.
final, like another ending almost. Essentially, after the 3rd ending, you get a plushie of the anomaly that's all glitchy and messed up. And in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, there's a corn maze where you
mask.
collect a key and find a matching gate to leave. However, if you collect all 4 keys and then one final secret 5th key, and then make it back to the center of the maze, you can get under a secret hatch. And inside is a workshop with a white rabbit mask. You collect that mask and then you can summon it in the lobby. Once in the lobby, if you hold that glitchy anomaly plush and put on that rabbit mask, you'll hear our player having a conversation with the anomaly. Now, you can't hear the anomaly speaking, you can only
Not
hear
yet.
yourself speaking. But we hear her say this.
Not yet.
I hear you.
No.
No.
There's no
There's no
miscommunication.
communication. I understand. Yes, I have it. I made it myself. I think you would like it. No one suspects anything. Don't worry. I'll be ready. And I won't let you down. It will be fun.
While yes, it's technically speculation, I think it is incredibly safe to assume that the thing she made is this rabbit mask and perhaps a full costume, and that the anomaly is preparing us for something. So that's the story of Help Wanted 1. But what lore from this game is relevant to the timeline and we should put on
Everything.
the bulletin board? Well, let's go over that. A lot of the important lore of this game comes from the cassette tapes that you can collect while playing. But instead of just playing all 16 cassette tapes, you can find that elsewhere on YouTube, we'll just go over the important points. First of all, one incredibly important piece of lore, possibly the most important piece of lore from this game that affects the whole timeline and the bulletin board itself, one of the tapes lets us know that the whole purpose of the in-universe FNAF VR game that we are playing is Fazbear's attempt to make fun of itself and make light of the past after a rogue indie developer made a series of games tarnishing the brand.
Yep.
Essentially, it's Fazbear being like, yes, haha, we get it.
Yeah,
We're kind of
yeah,
scary.
we did that.
Look, let's leave that in the
Ooh.
past and move on. But one of the tapes lets us know that Fazbear themselves hired that indie developer to make those games based off of real events in order to discredit those claims and do some elaborate cover-up.
Yeah.
Bye. So we'll mark both of those down, that the indie games exist and that this VR game exists, both of which are an elaborate cover-up to cover up the past. We should also note what I said earlier, that most of the lore comes from the perspective of the previous game tester of these games. Other information we get from those logs is that Fazbear sent over old, or as is said differently in emails we'll get to, vintage technology to scan into the system to find some kind of usable code.
They send
And they
circuit
do, but
board.
after
They
doing
send circuit boards of the Mimic. Now, who would do that?
so is when the anomaly began to show. Much of you already know this as the story of the creation of Glitchtrap, but again, this bulletin board is just directly stated or shown information about the games. So technically, they never say Glitchtrap in this game. I won't be saying it on this section of the bulletin board. The first tester, Jeremy, lost his mind while dealing with the anomaly, culminating in some sort of incident. Now, we don't get any specific details about what happened, but these are the quotes that illuminate what most likely took place.
Yeah.
There has to be a lawsuit. There's no way there isn't. It happened in this building just a few doors down from me. Have you ever heard of a guillotine paper slicer? It sounds made up, but it's an actual piece of office
Welcome. I know who that is. I know who that is. Welcome.
equipment. I didn't even know we had one in the supply room. Jeremy used to do design work.
Also, why do we... Bruh, what? What's up with the bitrate? I thought I increased that shit. No? Hold on. All right, let's try this.
I guess that's how he knew it was there. The supply room was lit. I didn't even notice Jeremy's.
The supply room was lit, guys. I don't know why, but I find that funny.
He knew it was there. The supply room was lit.
Hey, the surprise. The supply room was lit. That should not be as funny as it is, but it's funny.
I didn't even notice Jeremy standing in the testing room as I walked past. The supply room was so bright, glowing from all the way down the hall. There was something that looked like a Halloween mask laying on the floor. I didn't understand. Ink must have spilled.
Oh, that ain't ink, homie. Could have.
I couldn't see his face.
So I have the theory that Jeremy didn't cut off his face. Well, he did, but he cut off his face because the mask, the Vanny mask, was attached to his face and wouldn't come off. So he cut it off.
He had
Instead of just cutting off his face for reasons.
the visor covering his head. He had ink spilled on himself as well. The front of his shirt looked black in the dark room.
Yeah.
Oh, we might have some agony shenanigans going on here.
This is a big point of speculation. For a while, I thought that Jeremy cut off his own face to
Guys, see, Riley's saying the same thing.
get out of the VR helmet. But that doesn't quite make sense for a few reasons. First of all, the Halloween mask and ink that the cassette girl first sees is in a brightly lit room.
Yeah.
You would think if it's a human face and blood,
She would notice.
I can
Yeah.
excuse the
Yeah.
ink on Jeremy being blood because he's in a dark room. She can't really fully see him. But ink on the ground in a brightly lit room has
It's
to be
obviously
So
ink.
is
Yeah,
all of
it's a
it ink?
brightly
Well,
lit
then
room.
What's the Halloween mask? Why did he need the guillotine paper slice?
Oh, wait a minute. Now, this could have to do with Mr. So, for those who don't know, there's a story called Animatronic Apocalypse in which the principal of the school that the main character goes to, Robbie, his principal, may or may not, it doesn't seem fully human, so to speak. And when the final encounter happens, he gets stabbed and starts bleeding black liquid that the police identify as ink/motor oil. And this principal, Mr. Renner, is also wearing a mask. I'm just saying.
I'm not sure. Not to mention, if he cut off his own face to get the VR helmet off, why is he still wearing it after his face is on the ground? Like, it just doesn't add up. Regardless, something happened with the guillotine paper slicer that led to a lawsuit.
Oh,
or
yeah.
what was supposed to be a lawsuit. Moving on, it's important to note that Fazbear reclaimed all of the technology that was scanned into the game after it had been scanned in, overnight seemingly and without permission. It just disappeared one day. As we collect the log cassette tapes, she notes that the anomaly begins attaching itself to them, forming an
Yes,
anchor
sir.
into the game for itself. But when she notices this, she makes the decision to fragment her logs in order to keep the anomaly at bay, essentially splitting up its pieces so it can't be put back together. And then she records one additional log, a new one reintroducing herself and warning us to either abandon development or make sure these tapes are not found and put back together.
Yep.
So it's notable that the last tape completely changes course and says to collect all of the tapes and follow specific instructions. Many people believe this tape to be recorded by the anomaly. Now, I won't be putting that speculation on the bulletin board, but what we can put on the board is that the last tape completely changes course and tells you to do something different, and that the first words we hear the anomaly say are direct copy or mimic, hint hint.
Oh, he said the word. 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 Mimic. I'm going to tell you guys now, that word has been irreversibly altered for me. Now, because of Scott and Steel Wool, it only means one thing. I don't even care if it's used in the traditional context or the correct context. I will only think of the robot. Only.
First tape we hear.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh, foreshadowing.
Then further, for information on the anomaly, like I mentioned earlier, it resembles a felt suit styled to look like a yellow Bonnie, and it grows more clear and closer to the player the more tapes we collect. It should also be noted that even after we destroyed the anomaly, we're able to have a conversation with it as the player. And it also seems like the anomaly is preparing us for something. And that's the main lore of Help Wanted, but there is a lot more lore to go over still. Mainly lore just from the game and context itself. For instance, we know that this VR game is based off of in-universe indie games based off of the company. But by using the titles of certain games, the locations, characters, and even gameplay, we can assume these indie games are essentially FNAF 1 through 6, like the IRL FNAF 1 through 6.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fairly straightforward. Their titles are literally in-game. 4 makes a lot of sense because Night Terrors is essentially recreations of gameplay of FNAF 4. Next, I hear you, what about Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator? Sister Location gets tricky because we don't have a lot of direct recreations of Sister Location gameplay, but what we do see is Ennard show up 2 times. By all accounts, Ennard should have only ever been seen by Michael. It's something that forms in the Sister Location bunker away from public view, enters Michael, and then escapes into the sewers when his body falls apart. Only Michael should know about this creature. So the fact that it's in-game and faithfully recreated implies that it is a Fazbear character. And if it's a Fazbear character, then that would mean this game has to exist, because how else would the public know about Ennard? The same logic can apply for Pizzeria Simulator. There is no gameplay of Pizzeria Simulator shown in Help Wanted. However,
oh wait, no, you said Help Wanted. I was about to say Help Wanted 2, my friend.
there is a plushie of Scrap Baby. Scrap Baby again being a character that isn't a real Fazbear character. It's the result of Circus Baby trying to rebuild herself after splitting off from Ennard. And it's something that only Henry, Michael, and maybe a few other people should have seen. Not a well-known Fazbear character that has merchandise. So if that character
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How does Scrap Baby have merch?
isn't a real Fazbear, a plushie of Scrap Baby.
Yeah, because Scrap Baby isn't made... Like, Scrap Baby makes herself after... after she gets kicked out of Ennard, which they also should know about. Well... well, you could... Now, I'm playing devil's advocate with myself here, but you could make the argument that there's cameras down in Sister Location, but here's the thing. Sister Location's an secret underground bunker. But it also has technicians, I know. But William could have hired those technicians, and they all died anyway, so they're not there anymore. Basically put, they shouldn't know about Ennard, and they shouldn't know about Scrap Baby, but they do. So either A, inconsistency, or B, we're missing something.
Scrap Baby again being a character that isn't a real Fazbear character. It's the result of Circus Baby trying to rebuild herself after splitting off from Ennard.
Yeah.
It's something that only Henry, Michael, and maybe a few
Yeah, that's my point!
Not a well-known Fazbear.
Even if they knew about it, even if they knew about it, why would they make the plushie? No one else knows about Scrap Baby, so it wouldn't sell. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Their character that has merchandise.
And also, yeah, canonically, only Henry, William, and Michael know about her. So how the hell?
If that character is known to the public, that implies Pizzeria Simulator is a game. And that's doubled down with the books that we will get to. But in those books, Pizzeria Simulator is literally name dropped. So... you know, but I hear that some of you
they literally name dropped the game.
Help Wanted is saying every game before now is fake and you shouldn't listen to it. And I'm not saying that, and neither is Help Wanted. It should be noted, and I'm putting it on the bulletin board, that Cassette Girl literally explicitly states that these games were recreations of real events that did happen. It's not saying these games...
Okay, but that's like the bait... What? That's the base belief. Are you... Cause now, other people say that FNAF... Okay, it's so complicated. You have the real events, the 2 games made by Fazbear Entertainment making... Oh my god. So you have the real events, the games made based on those real events, and then the cover-up game for the fake games made by Fazbear Entertainment. Like...
didn't happen. What I think Help Wanted is trying to tell us in this moment, and
so
I
there's there's 2 sets of games, the fake ones, and then the indie games, FNAF 1 to 6, the in-universe indie games, And then the 2 games, Help Wanted and Help Wanted 2, made by Fazbear Entertainment to discredit the discrediting. And then you have the real events,
so I'm willing to put
which
it on the
we
bulletin
play.
board, is that these games did happen. However, they are made by an unreliable narrator. So
Yes.
certain details might not be accurate. The meta of this is that I think Steelwell and Scott are telling us, hey, we want to continue this story, but if something we say currently contradicts something we said previously, trust the current over.
That's such a cop-out, bro. That's such a cop-out. That's such a writing cop-out.
The original 6 games. I think that's all that this is saying, and I think that's a fair ask. Keep in mind, some of these games are 10 years old and were made in 3 months.
Scott wrote himself
some
into
other
a corner
interesting
and he had
lore
to get
that
out.
We should point out can be found within actual levels of the game. In the blacklight mode of entered vent repair.
Yes! I was hoping you would talk about this because this is important. I think now you can think, some people think that this level is the only level that actually happens. But
there is a furnace at the bottom of the level, outside of which there are funtime animatronic shells, and inside are Endo 01 and
Molten
Endo
MCI
02
confirmation!
Somebody separated that pile to find about 4 animatronics.
yes! 4 Endo 01s in a furnace in sister location. Straight Molten MCI.
I think
Theory
this is incredibly
confirmed.
important, but I will keep my mouth shut until we get there. I
Molten
did make
MC
a whole video about
Molten
specific
MCI,
events. You can watch right here, though. The pizza party level is strange and worth pointing out. I mean, I'm not sure even if this is the intended original ending for the in-universe Five Nights at Freddy's VR. It literally might be something created by the anomaly. After all, it's more of a rehash of
the Mimic did not create this game, but infected it.
other things already present in the game and some weird warehouse bits. It's almost like it was mimicking the game.
Oh!
For Help Wanted, the Curse of Dreadbird DLC takes place within Fall Fest of 1983. This is a completely new event that we still have little to no information on, but it's worth pointing out that this depiction of Fall Fest takes place next to a large red lake surrounded by trees with the FNAF 4 house in the distance, and that Dreadbear can be seen leaving the lake and entering the barn. So that's all the relevant lore I could pluck out of Help Wanted, but we are not done yet. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's another game with lore that's relevant to bring up now, because what it
FNAF
lacks
AR?
in quantity of lore, it
Yeah.
makes up for in quality.
Yeah.
FNAF Special Delivery
Yes, sir.
AR has a lot of incredibly important.
Believe it or not, like even like this game may not be like, if you're getting this game, you're not getting it for the gameplay. You're getting it for the emails, which is the lore. That's what this game is, and it is packed with it.
Lore, but it's lore that goes hand in hand with Help Wanted and Security Breach.
It's
and
the bridge.
outside of this lore, there's not much else here. So there's like 4 points, but they are incredibly important points.
Very
and they
important.
come from Dark Circus and the emails.
Yeah,
now, I
Dark
made a full
Circus.
video on the Dark Circus, which you can
Oh
watch.
wait, are you gonna mention the Golden Freddy thing? Great, what's it called? Like Houdini, Golden, no, Great Escape, Golden Freddy. It was like that was you put that as evidence for Cassidy drowning, which no, it can be, but like that's reaching a bit.
Right here. But in that video, I didn't talk about the emails because I wasn't focusing on it. Now it's time. As you play Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery, or as you could have played before the game was shut down and unplayable now, Forsaken's pretty good though. You can unlock specific emails that were supposed to stay within Fazbear and their subcontractors. Luckily, even though the game has been shut down, people have already compiled all of these emails along with emails that were never shown to the public, but were probably essentially planned to be, but
No, you can't use scrap content for lore, otherwise the band is canon, in which that fucks up the entire timeline. So no.
Never ended up getting to be. These emails sort of fall into one of
Scrap
three
time.
categories.
It's scrapped
The first
for a
one being
reason.
Emails from Lewis to someone named Ness, whose email is
Ness. He's emailing Sans.
97. Lewis is in HR, and throughout these emails, it's pretty clear that he has a crush on his coworker named Ness, who we can almost
That's
for a fact
inappropriate.
assume is Vanessa.
That's
After all, Lewis
inappropriate.
implies later
You
that
shouldn't
she
be
goes by VA,
having
and she
romantic
fills
interactions
the
in the
role of
workplace.
Vanessa from Security Breach and the Vanessa from Help Wanted very cleanly. By the way, it's these emails that let us know our player from Help Wanted is almost certainly Vanessa. In these emails, it seems
it's
that
Vanessa.
Vanessa is switching between two personalities, one where she's herself and one where she is Vanny, someone we'll get to know in Security Breach, but essentially the part of her mind that is controlled by the anomaly. We also learn that she's behind another set of emails between what we assume to be the Help Wanted team, corroborating information.
I did too, yeah, but then I realized it was just Scott doing a call, Scott making fun of Matt Pack because they have like this weird buddy rivalry relationship. That would have been cool.
With what we've heard in the tapes, these emails document when the Help Wanted team originally received the Fazbear technology, scanned it in, and got what they called the virus. It's this strange virus that begins taking over things and making things act differently. We could assume this to be the anomaly from Help Wanted. Luckily, someone from the IT of Fazbear going by V_A comes in and isolates the virus to one location, and then after some time removes the virus. All of the workers are thankful and celebratory, but suddenly get worried when all of their access to their systems have been locked out as well, to the point where they begin emailing from their phone because they can't even log into their computers. So we'll put a pin in there that happened, but that's not all. Lewis later tells us more info, and we get an email showing this happening. It's implied this Ness, using VA as a login with the Pizzaplex, inputs the package of this virus into the Pizzaplex system. So
anyone else find that weird?
Plex inputs the pack.
Take a look at this sequence right here. Virus detected, packet inspected, data pack rejected. All right, you're locked out now. Now they suspect malware, so they scan it and they think they remove it. Now you're locked out again. Virus detected, packet inspected, override, data packet accepted. Someone is trying to forcefully get the mimic into there. Obvious, well, Fanny, but you know.
Package of this virus into the Pizzaplex system. So when we take a step back, these emails from Special Delivery literally directly tell us how Vanessa got the anomaly into the Pizzaplex system. She pretended to be Fazbear IT and isolated the anomaly from Help Wanted and extracted the virus, and then inputted the virus to the Pizzaplex systems and bypassed the security to get it into the actual computers. And then the anomaly was free to infect the entire Pizzaplex. So put a big old pin in there. Some other information we could get is how we know pretty much for a fact that this VA/Ness is Vanessa, because another email detailing workers, their birthdays, and their favorite cakes lists someone by Vanessa A, age 23, whose favorite cake is bunny-shaped cakes. That's pretty cut and dry. But notably, she's 23, and her username is Nessie97, which
no. That does no. Because otherwise, I was born in 2123.
implies she was born in 1997.
No.
So, this also implies these emails are taking place in 2020.
Bro, you can't just say that, just because there's numbers, you can't just say that that's her birthday and then apply that. You can't do that.
That's very important, because a lot of people, and at different times in my life, myself included, have believed FNAF 3 takes place in 2023. After all, it's stated to be on the 30th anniversary.
I'd say 2015, but it could be 2023. But that's based on FNAF 1 being in 1993, which isn't even confirmed. So, like, you see what I'm saying?
Anniversary, and we're fairly certain FNAF 1 takes place probably around 93. So, 1993 plus 30, 2023. However, if these emails take place in 2020, that means FNAF 3 can't take place in 2023. FNAF 3 has to take place a long time before these emails occur. After all,
hold on,
take place in 2020 plus 30, 2023. However, if these emails take place in 2020, that means FNAF 3 can't take place in 2023.
And that's why I say it's in 2015.
FNAF 3 has to take place a long time before these emails occur. After all, FNAF 3 happens, then FNAF 6 happens, then the whole PR stunt with the indie games happen, then Help Wanted happens, and during Help Wanted and after Help Wanted is when these emails take place. So when does FNAF 3 take place? Well, I think the best runner-up option for us is 2013. We know—
Excuse me? Excuse me? Hold on. Wait. Wait. Are you saying, hold on, are you going to say, hold on, because the only way you get 2013 is if you add 30 years to 1983, which is when oh, no, Freddy's has been around since 1983, but no. Because it closed after a major incident. Or it's 30 years after the closing of a Freddy's. A tragedy. I would say there's a pretty good chance that that's the biggest incident and the catalyst of the series, the MCI, the missing children incident, which happened in 1985. So I add 30 years and I got 2015. I'd say that's fair reasoning.
For a fact that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was established in
1983.
That's what the coin says. That's what the TV in FNAF 4 says. It just makes
That's Fredbear and Friends, which is different. But the coin is the actual,
makes a lot of sense. And if Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened in 1983, then 2013 would be a 30th year anniversary of Freddy Fazbear's. So that wraps it up with a nice bow. FNAF 3 takes place in 2013, and then FNAF 6 can't take place in 2023 either. I, for a long time, assumed FNAF 6 took place in 2023 because the log was HRY223. So like, cool, that's our date, it lines up with FNAF 3. Now it doesn't. So, I mean, maybe that's just the 223rd log that Henry left while doing this. I don't know.
There's no shot.
FNAF 6 takes place sometime in between 2013 and 2020.
There's no way Henry recorded 223 logs. There's no way.
About that when we think about it. Oh, and before we end, I'm just gonna put one old big pin for all of the Dark Circus. Again, I made a whole video on it. It probably has something to do with Fredbear and Fall Fest, but you know, the Dark Circus. And that's all the pertinent timeline lore I could think of from Help Wanted and Special Delivery. And again, this is just direct information from the games without any speculation. We will be adding a lot more to this timeline besides just the cards on this bulletin board. This is just the foundation we set before we start building our house. That being said, if you want to know what other speculation and information
it's going to be a pretty shaky house,
games,
I'll tell you that.
I made a whole timeline documenting every single video pertinent to making this timeline, which you can watch right here. It's the playlist. I hope I said playlist and not timeline. I don't know. I like that take. I'm sticking with it. But if you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to use #RightTart so I can find it. A huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.
All right, on to the next one. Good theory, right toast.
Fredbear's family died.
Oh, game theory! Ha 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 ha! I've been waiting for this. Okay, so this is the first theory from Tom about FNAF that I'll be reacting to. So let's just get right onto it.
This is where it all began.
Yes. Well, no. Fall Fest, but yeah.
Animatronic empire, the string of deaths, and William's descent into madness. Everything stemmed from this
Burn Trap is not William, that's the mimic.
one location. Or at least, that's what we all thought. Until today.
Till Fall Fest 93
Hello,
or
Internet.
83.
Welcome to Game Theory, where it is finally time. Today, I graduate from FNAF boy to FNAF man, and take on my very first FNAF theory. Although, I say that, I have actually been helping Matt write FNAF theories for the past 3 years.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks,
Have a safe flight back.
Bye.
I didn't get to talk to you about Gregory as a robot. It's all right.
Kids.
I mean, to be fair, that was both of our sin. But, you know.
I threw something out, my first FNAF theory.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Gregory as a robot, first FNAF theory, and look how well received it's been.
Look how
Yes,
good that's going
I
for all of
did.
us.
It's done so well for all.
I did prepare a playlist because I'm not gonna search for each
All
thing.
of us.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? But don't worry, theorists. I promise today's theory is way less crazy, hopefully. Because today, I'm going to be tackling one simple, teeny tiny detail that I think is really important to understanding this franchise. Help Wanted 2 was full of collectibles, most of which you get from a prize machine after you beat a minigame. Some are set prizes that relate to the level you just completed, like a sun figure for beating the first daycare mission, or a meat pretzel for beating the Fazbear Theater. However, after you beat the game, there are some extra prizes to collect that are given to you at random when you replay a stage. Usually this is just extra plushies, models, or food. But sometimes you get posters, and one of these posters stood out above all the rest. It ends up on the back wall right next to the Faz Wrench entrance for the Princess Quest minigame. It's a poster promoting Fall Fest 1970. Now, to the FNAF community,
This is all blind, my friend.
community, Fall Fest is nothing new. We first saw this name pop up almost 5 years ago.
We only do
in the
blind
Curse of
reactions
Fredbear
on this
DLC for
channel.
The original Help Wanted. A Halloween-inspired event full of attractions, rides, and of course, spooky versions of all our favorite characters to fit in with the Halloween theme. But there is one crucial difference between this Fall Fest and the one we see on the poster from Help Wanted 2, the date. The banners around the Curse of Dreadbear hub world show that this event was taking place in 1983, but this new poster is from over a decade before. This whole Fall Fest thing has clearly been running for a very long time. In fact, it's been running since before the earliest confirmed parts of the FNAF timeline. In the Silver Eyes, when Charlie is looking for news articles on Fredbear's Family Diner, she starts the search at 1979, seeming to imply that this was when the diner was founded. But that is
That's not...
9 whole years.
Just react to the video. Just react to it. Just react to it. I gotta work on this. I really do. Like, it's becoming an issue.
After this poster was
Can you
published.
blame
And that's
me,
not
though?
all. Look at the design of this poster. While it's advertising Fall Fest, it's not inherently spooky like the event we see for the Curse of Dreadbear. Instead, it has autumnal elements, but it's mostly designed to look like an old two-toned circus poster, complete with a giant circus tent right in the middle. And this isn't the first time Steel Wool has offered us hints that circuses might be
It's not
important
even
to this
that bad.
franchise. There's the mini games in Help Wanted 2, like the carousel.
Okay, no. Well... Yeah.
And Fazablast. There's the circus costumes that are down in the basement of Ruin. There's even circus-themed Funko merch. Clearly, Steel Wool is beating us over the head with this circus thing for a reason. But why? Well, back in 2022, in the build-up to Security Breach's Xbox port, Steel Wool did an interview with Game Jolt to talk about how they made Security Breach, give some updates on Ruin's development, and drop some little hints towards what might be coming down the pipeline for them and the FNAF franchise. And when asked what kind of game they'd like to make in the future, they said this.
One thing that I've always would love to do is get back to kind of like the origin of like Fazbear Entertainment, kind of see how.
Same here. I'd like to head further back into the 70s.
Because that's going to be the next one. At least I think so.
They want to create a game about the origins of Freddy's set in the 70s.
Yes,
Most
sir.
of us at the time assumed this would just be Fredbear's Family Diner, but with all this circus imagery popping up, it begs the question, what if Fredbear's Family Diner wasn't the origin of Freddy's? What if instead it was this circus? Fall Fest 1970. And once I
Yeah, I can
realized
believe
that,
that.
things started to fall
Gotta
into
give me
place.
proof, though.
This poster is the key to clarifying some massive holes in the FNAF timeline. It confirms a number of things we've been predicting for a while, and it shines a little more light on the franchise's latest villain. Come to think of it, maybe this isn't such a small theory after all. Whoops. So, you better grab your popcorn, theorists, because the show is about to begin, and I'm going to reveal to you the true origins of Freddy's. But before we get into that, I need to talk to you about something else that's really important. It's something you may have seen if you watch our own sister location, Style Theory, but we have an exciting theorist event coming up. We are...
I bet you do.
All corners... this very, very special event. And to celebrate, we're going to be drenching the man live on stage. Maybe it's water, maybe it's Nickelodeon slime, who knows? You'll have to watch the stream to find out. So mark your calendars for April 25th at 2:30 p.m. PST. We're going to be going live right here on Game Theory. So if you aren't already, make sure you're subscribed because believe me...
Wait, what time did you say?
We're going to be drenching the man live on... Mark your calendars for April 25th at 2:30
Oh, wait. Forgot this video is old.
p.m. PST.
It's like, what?
We're going to be going live right 25th.
Anyway.
While there have been a number of hints towards circuses throughout the games and books, it doesn't necessarily mean that's where this whole thing started. So let's take a look at one of the more recent examples of the circus being hinted at, so I can show you where I'm coming from. In the basement of the Ruin DLC where you find the Mimic, there are two costumes hanging up. An old lady blackbird,
and then the elephant.
And an elephant dressed as a clown.
Yes,
in the game
sir.
files, there's also a lion wearing a varsity jacket. 3 animals all associated
Oh, yeah, and
with
this
the circus.
lion.
Elephants.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
A lion wearing...
Looking at this costume now, it looks different from in-game. Did Mimic rip off the snout of this? Did he like rip off its face? Because look at Mimic's costume. Here's the look. So the one you see right now, that's the one like in game on screen. These are both in game, but this is what we see when Mimic wears the costume. Now compare that to this. He did He ripped off the snout. He ripped off the snout so he could see through. If you could see, so he could see through the mouth. It looks so goofy. Anyway.
Wearing a varsity jacket. 3 animals all associated with the circus. Elephants often perform tricks, lions were regularly tamed by lion tamers, and while crows or blackbirds aren't traditionally circus animals, they do often appear in circus-focused media like Disney's Dumbo. Plus, the elephant is literally dressed as a clown. It doesn't get more circusy than that. But the most important part isn't actually their circus theming. It's the fact they aren't animatronic suits. In our initial theory,
he does look like a Disney actor. He does.
Seem to be
Look at this shit, dog. Like, what?
related to circus babies because, you know, circus. However, when Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental
Circus Babies
Pizza World was due to launch, they were all animatronics. And complex ones at that. Why then would they have physical costumes? They wouldn't, unless these costumes actually came from something circus themed that was before animatronics were part of this franchise. In The Mimic, not the robot, the Tales from the Pizzaplex story named after him, we learn of a character named Edwin who owns a robotics company.
If you say he's a parallel to Henry, I'm gonna stop the stream.
And getting big off of making a robot vacuum cleaner. However, with the birth of his son, the death of his wife, and then the crippling pressure of running his own business, he decides to sell the company to none other than Fazbear Entertainment. Why does Fazbear agree to purchase? Because they want Edwin for his robotics knowledge. Specifically, they want him to turn their character costumes into full-blown animatronics. We've seen
but the issue with this is that Henry designed the animatronics. Edwin just... He did... What'd he do? Some prototyping shit? I don't fucking know.
Seen him do exactly this with Chica in the first...
Regardless, Henry made the animatronics, not Edwin. They're not parallels. They're separate characters, because they're different. Not the same.
Pages of the story. Later on, he goes on to explain that this is the 18th character he'd been asked to create, describing the collection as, quote, a circus-like array of animal and other character costumes. Circus-like, you say? We believed for a long time that Edwin is the book's parallel for Henry, the animatronic genius that helped Afton to grow Fazbear into the animatronic empire we know today. So the circus-themed costumes we see in the basement of Ruin likely came from that same time period, a period where Henry was transforming costumes into animatronics. And these costumes aren't Henry's only connection to the circus either. When Charlie goes back to her childhood home in the Silver Eyes, she looks through Henry's office and finds an assortment of books that, quote, would have seemed eclectic to anyone who didn't know the man. There were books on biology and...
They claim he did. They claim he turned them into animatronics. But I don't think he did, because that contradicts the games. Well, it doesn't really. But it means that there's two inventors, not one. Also, there's multiple Freddy's locations, so yeah.
Anatomy. Some on human beings, others on animals. There were books about the history of the traveling carnival and of the circus. There were books about child development, about myths and legends, and about sewing patterns and techniques. There were volumes that claimed to be about trickster gods, about quilting bees, and about football cheering squads and their mascots. Most of these make a lot of sense. Things like anatomy, mascots, sewing patterns, it all ties into the idea that he was creating characters and turning costumes into animatronics. The books about child development either tie into the fact that he was catering to kids and so was trying to figure out how he could best serve his customers, or it's linked to the human anatomy books and ties into Henry creating robot versions of his daughter Charlie. But there's
it's not a parallel.
one selection that has always stood out as odd, one that I've never had an explanation for, and that is the history of the traveling carnival and of the circus. Why would Henry need books on that topic if all the work he's ever done is on animatronics and diners? He needs it because the origins of Fazbear are rooted in traveling circuses and carnivals. It was a hint as to the first years of this business. So, this circus, Fall Fest, seems to be where Fazbear Entertainment all began. But now the question is, who else was there? And I don't mean human characters. Let's be honest, we don't have many of them that are actually important, especially not back in 1970. I mean, which of the Fazbear characters were part of the original roster? As I've mentioned, during Help Wanted 2, we get a number of minigames that take place in carnival-like settings, namely Fazablast and the Carousel. And it's the Carousel that I want us to take a look at first. The game itself is pretty straightforward, you know, when you don't have an Ash trying to desperately keep your microphone attached.
Oh my god!
But despite this, Matt did manage to notice a very interesting detail in the level's design. A random pumpkin, just sitting there waiting to be thrown. I think we can all agree that pumpkins are something we specifically associate with Halloween. And the only event we know to take place at Halloween in this franchise is, you guessed it, Fall Fest. We even get a Halloween-themed version of Moon appear during the nightmare level of the carousel ride. The carousel is from Fall Fest, which means it's from the early part of the franchise. But then, take a look at the characters that are used on the carousel. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, which, you know, is what you'd expect. Except it's not just the original versions from FNAF 1. The one that immediately stands out to me is this white...
Hold on, pause.
and pink version of Foxy. Funtime Foxy? Well, kinda. Because you might also notice it has a hooked hand, something that Funtime Foxy is clearly lacking in Sister Location. However, there is a version of Funtime Foxy with a hook hand, and that's in FNAF World, a game that came out before Sister Location and doesn't have any other Funtime animatronics present, implying that Funtime Foxy didn't originally belong with that group of animatronics, instead belonging to an earlier set, and this carousel tells us exactly which group that is. The other characters on this ride, besides Funtime Foxy and the original 4, all have rosy red cheeks, which aligns with the toy animatronics from FNAF 2. Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and Funtime Foxy, the toy version of Foxy. The toy animatronics being here feels wrong, doesn't it? The toys don't become a thing until 1987 with their special recognition software and new, more complex endoskeletons. They replaced the old withered versions of the original Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy from the original Freddys. How then are they on a ride from 1970? Well, this is because I don't think the toy animatronics are meant to call back to the 1983 Freddy's animatronics. They're supposed to be referencing the original circus costumes. Going back to the Mimic story, once Edwin abandons the warehouse, Fazbear employees are sent in to collect any Fazbear property, things like their costumes. One character mentions a few of them: a brown Freddy Fazbear costume, a yellow Chica costume, a Foxy costume, a Bonnie costume. The original 4.
No. Those are not the classics. No. Those are not the classics. Henry canonically made the classics.
As costumes before their introduction as animatronics at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And what's even crazier is the designs of those costumes actually exist. A few years ago, there was a, let's just say, controversial, but
the art, that weird art. I think FNAF made a video on this.
Time official FNAF artist that dropped an image onto the FNAF subreddit with
look at this creepy shit.
The only thing we knew is that these images contained Scott's official copyright. These images were commissioned by Scott, which makes them as good a piece of evidence as any. And what are these images of? Versions of Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica
costumes.
in a similar style to
Here
the
we go, ladies
costume.
and gentlemen. Look at this creepy ass shit, by the way. Like, this is creepy. Look how wide open their eyes are. Yo.
You'd find at a theme park like Disneyland, all with large proportions and big round heads in order to have a human fit inside them. These appear to be the original costumes for the characters. And where were these costumes used? I suspect they were worn at the circus. Why? Well, notice the bright red cheeks. Exaggerated features like big red noses or cheeks have been used by clowns and circus performers for centuries. Joseph Grimaldi is recognized as being the ancestor for modern clowns, and in 1802 he created the design for his most iconic character, Joey the Clown. And one of this character's iconic features was painted red cheeks. Similarly, Albert Fratellini is known to have helped redefine a type of clown in the mid-1900s known as the August Clown, complete with the bright red nose we know today. Why did both these performers feel it
Buggy the Clown
necessary to have bright red features for the evolution of the clown? Because when the word clown was first recorded in 1560, it meant rustic, boor, or peasant. This often boiled down to one simple stereotype: the town drunk, who you would often see after he'd had a big
What? The what?
iconic character, Joey the Clown. And one of this character's iconic features was painted red cheeks. Similarly, Albert Fratellini is known to have helped redefine a type of clown in the mid-1900s known as the August Clown, complete with the bright red nose we know today. Why did both these performers feel it necessary to have bright red features for the evolution of the clown? Because when the word clown was first recorded in 1560, it meant rustic, boor, or peasant. This often boiled down to one simple stereotype: the town drunk, who you would often see after he'd had a bit too much to drink, with a bright red nose and red cheeks. This happens when your body isn't able to digest alcohol properly, causing a release of histamines that essentially cause your face to have an allergic reaction, namely red cheeks and nose. The idea of referencing this was to make clowns or characters immediately look foolish, silly, or disarming, so people would be quicker to laugh at them rather than be scared of them, which is pretty ironic when you think about it. That is why I believe these costumes are circus costumes. Not because they're trying to make characters look like drunks, that wouldn't be very child-friendly. It was to invoke those same reactions of silly, goofy fun. And the kicker is you can see this trait carried over into the most definitively circus costume we've got available: elephant costume down in the ruined basement. Usually you don't get a chance to see them up close,
wait,
but
what's
freeze
like
the frame
the
just right, or
what's
search
your
game
point
files, and you'll find that although a little faded, it too has rosy red cheeks. So red-cheeked characters like the ones we see in these designs would have been right at home at a circus, which also opens up the door to other red-cheeked characters.
1 second, guys. Just have to make a quick phone call.
Your call has been forwarded.
Characters from this franchise to potentially be part of the original roster. Maybe characters that weren't originally animal costumes, but more likely humans wearing the same kind of face paint. Case in point, Balloon Boy.
Hello?
Balloon Boy has never really fit in anywhere. We turned on FNAF 2 and he was just there, and we've hated him ever since.
I said read the
Read the his own arcade cabinet, Balloon World. And if you played that game, you'd see a circus tent in the background. Balloon Boy's only standalone adventure.
I'm pretty sure Raito's also made like a theory along the lines of this.
Places him at the circus. But while he never fit in with FNAF 2's characters, he did have a striking resemblance to a handful of characters in Sister Location and Circus Babies. Other wooden puppets like the Magician and Fortune Teller, all jobs that would be found at a circus. Selling balloons was an important part of any circus, so Balloon Boy with his little sign offering them to children would be right at home with the rest of them. And to top it all off, when Funko decided to release their new circus line of FNAF products, it contained not just clown versions of all the characters, but versions of all of them wearing Balloon Boy's iconic outfit. We were being shown that balloon characters, and specifically that outfit, are inherently tied to the circus. Balloon Boy has to be a part of this. Fall Fest is where he finally makes sense. Another example would be Circus Baby. She's been showing up a lot in recent games, just like the circus imagery, so it feels like Steel Wool are purposely trying to connect the two. She's also got the red cheeks we've talked about, as well as that white face paint that we see on most traditional clowns. She'd fit right in at a circus. Plus,
well, and also she's called Circus Baby. Circus.
You know, she's literally got circus in her name.
Yeah.
Maybe this character, whose placement in the timeline has perplexed us for so long, belongs way earlier in the franchise's history than any of us expected. But above those two, in the books, there is one
I don't know about that because she's a fun time animatronic.
Other costume that gets called out. The core four, but always one more, a jester costume. Now, I'm sure Matt is once again freaking out because jesters aren't clowns and they aren't part of a circus, and dude, I get it, but
Correct.
just trust me on this.
No. The jester suit is what Mimic gets spring-locked into.
The Mimic story about the rack of costumes. After listing off the main four characters we know and love, they finish off by adding and bright pink, yellow, green court jester costumes, similar to the colors we see Sun wearing in Security Breach. Yeah, I know they're a little off, but they're pretty close. And just look at the rest of his costume: curly pointed toes with bells, puffy trousers or pants, I suppose, and the tutu-like frills on his waist and ankles. He is 100% meant to be a court jester. He even jumps out of a freaking castle when we first meet him in Security Breach. And as Matt was very keen to point out, jesters originated as performers for royalty in their castles during the Middle Ages. Finally, there's the epilogues, where the jester character once again returns, but this time we get a description of its mask. Quote, Lucius stepped up to the costume, suppressing a shiver at the jester's leering, toothy grin and its wide eyes. One of Sun's most distinct features is his obnoxious, toothy grin. It's so iconic that he had to have teeth underneath his teeth just in case, and those large vacant eyes.
He needed teeth underneath his teeth.
That he had to have teeth underneath his teeth just in case. And those large vacant eyes definitely give off that leering vibe that Lucia was describing. So even though Sun doesn't have the red cheeks like we talked about, he still appears to be very obviously connected to the original crew: Freddy, Chica, Foxy, and Bonnie, as well as the circus. He is the last one mentioned when they're all being listed off, as if the costumes were grouped together, like they came from the same collection of characters. Characters that came from Fazbear's circus days. Sun and Moon actually make a lot of sense as characters in a traveling circus. In the tail story Bobby Dots, we get a bit of much needed backstory on this character who just showed up in Security Breach, not matching any of the 80s-tastic designs of the Pizzaplex. It turns out they weren't always a daycare attendant, but instead a performer. They put on shows where Sun would be the hero, and when the lights went out, Moon would appear as the story's villain. That ties into the comedy and tragedy masks that we found in Ruin, masks that display Sun and Moon's face. So it would have also been an ideal performance to keep kids entertained at a circus venue. And later on, when the daycare was introduced, that same Bobby Dot story describes the daycare's design as a carnival-like space, hammering home the connection to the character's origins. And then the icing on the cake, during Help Wanted 2, he is the one we face when we're trying to fix the carousel from those old Fall Fest days. He's been there since the start. And when you think about it, in the early days of the franchise, when you're trying to keep costs down, buying a full mascot costume or fursuit from a trusted provider can cost upwards of $5,000, while costumes for professional jesters and clowns are typically just a few $100, keeping costs nice and low when you're first starting out. It really feels...
How was it? No, my God.
Feels like the circus origin is helping characters that are out of place have a place to finally belong. Sun and Moon, Baby, Balloon Boy, all of them will be right at home here at the circus. However, Fall Fest isn't just the origins of the Fazbear franchise. It's also the origins of William Afton's first major tragedy. Fazablast in Help Wanted 2 is a shooting gallery that matches the design of the hub world during the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. Dreadbear even makes an appearance at the attraction. So, this attraction clearly takes place during Fall Fest 1983. However, the penultimate Fazablast level ends with you shooting a number of rockets and popping all the balloon versions of the animatronics that appear. Doing so seems to cause a chain reaction that leads to the whole thing ending up in flames. And when you go back for the final level, the place is burnt to the ground. We see the same thing happen during the carousel ride. As you try to fix it, sparks fly and the thing lights.
There seems to be a lot of fire imagery going on here.
It's up, leading to the nightmare version of the level where the whole place is already ablaze. And if you go out of bounds during that carousel level, you can see the red sky, burnt trees, water tower, and windmill that are all present during that final Fazablast level off in the distance. Steel Wool is clearly showing us that much like every other establishment in this franchise, this event, Fall Fest 1983, ended in fire. 1983 sucked for this franchise, but especially for Afton. He loses his kid to a malfunctioning Springlock suit and his other son's negligence. Fredbear's family diner gets shut down, and to top it all off, he loses the thing that started this whole business, the circus. Steel Wool is all about a sympathetic,
Also gassing children, did you forget that?
pathetic villain backstory.
Try not to set out to make a cool looking villain. Go make a monster that have a reason for it. These aren't just like these supernatural forces that came out.
No, you do not need a motive, no.
Out of nowhere to just hurt people and punish people, right? Like there were results of other wrongdoing.
Adding a fire to an already pretty awful list of tragedy and loss, it would make it a little...
Someone who has a reason to do this smiles while killing children? No. I didn't think so.
Less surprising that Afton could suddenly snap and go on a murder spree. But this fire tells us more than just how this first chapter in FNAF history ended. It also tells us that there was one other character here, someone else present from the beginning that you wouldn't suspect, the Mimic. Yeah, I know, I was surprised too, but
it was made in 1984. What?
Everything seems to be pointing to this guy being here since the earliest days of the franchise.
That's not possible. That's literally not possible.
Guys, we get a lot of different descriptions for the Mimic during the epilogues of Tales from the Pizzaplex. Sometimes it's a traditional endoskeleton, other times it's a spider-like mess of slimy black wires. But when we are first introduced to it, we're given...
That's not the Mimic. What?
One extra detail.
Are you talking about the storyteller?
Detail that I never fully understood. Quote, it wasn't just a basic metal structure. Its steel frame was contained within a building collection of metal rods and curved plates and an impressive system of ball joints and pistons. All of it was topped with a long, vaguely rectangular shaped shiny steel skull. The skull was the only part that was shiny. The rest was dark and discolored, as if it had survived some kind of fire. That's a pretty specific way of phrasing it, especially when it points out that the head isn't blackened by the same issue. We're being given a clue as to where this Mimic came from, because the other detail that's important to bear in mind is that quote comes from the very start of the story, when the endoskeleton first arrives at the Pizzaplex. It was delivered to this location already burnt, which tells us that it had to be in a previous Fazbear fire, and I believe that fire was the fire of Fall Fest. But what makes me so sure that the Mimic got all burned during that fire specifically? Here's the thing. I know we always joke that everything in this franchise ends in fire, but we can actually count the number of fires on one hand, even if you're an animatronic with only 4 fingers, which means it shouldn't be too difficult to go through each one and determine which one the Mimic came from. Working backwards, there's a fire at the end of Security Breach if you beat the burn trap ending. Afton is defeated, the blob steals him away, and the entire Pizzaplex catches fire.
That's not canon. Doesn't happen.
And collapses. But as we've talked about before, it doesn't seem like this is the canon ending for Security
Thank
Breach.
you.
We find Gregory's drawings for the non-canon endings during Ruin, and the last one we collect is his drawing of the burn trap ending, which means this fire wasn't a real fire. And even if it was, this ending takes place at the Pizzaplex, so the mimic couldn't have been delivered to the Pizzaplex burnt from a fire, as the burn trap ending comes later in the timeline. Second option is
Wait a whoa. Because I thought the same thing. Do you believe that theory now? I call it glitch merge. And I made it like what? A month ago?
the FNAF 6 fire. But once again, we face issues with timeline. The Pizzaplex is being built on top of the FNAF 6 location, which means the Mimic wouldn't be able to be delivered to that location when the Pizzaplex is being constructed, like we see in the book, because it would have already been there. The only other fire left other than Full Fest is the FNAF 3 fire, but the owners of Fazbear Fright...
Wait. What?
Pizzaplex is being built on top of the FNAF 6 location, which means the Mimic wouldn't be able to be delivered to that location when the Pizzaplex is being constructed, like...
Wait a minute.
Means the Mimic wouldn't be able to be delivered to that location when the FNAF from a fire, as the burn trap ending comes later in the timeline. Second option is the FNAF 6 fire, but once again we face issues with timeline. The Pizzaplex is being built on top of the Pizzaplex is being constructed, like we see in the book, because it would have already been there. The only other fire left other than Full Fest is the FNAF 3 fire, but the owners of Fazbear Fright seemed pretty stoked when they found their first working animatronic, Springtrap. Up until this point, they'd only had bits and pieces like a foxy head, so it feels like they'd have also made a pretty big deal of finding a Mimic, bringing it back to the location, even if
you think they would, right? But the thing is, they are so corrupt that they don't.
If they thought it was just an endo. So it doesn't feel like it can be that one either, which leaves only one fire for the Mimic to have been burnt in. The fire of Full Fest 1983, meaning the Mimic...
Wait, didn't it say that Edwin's factory burned down though? So
Mimic has been around for a long time. We actually theorized this back when we covered Sun and Moon after the events of Ruin. We connected the Mimic's thrown together, thin, simple animatronic design to that of Sun and Moon. Namely, a very weird but distinct feature, independently moving teeth. It's a strange design detail that we've never seen before. So for both characters to have the same detail in the same game makes it seem like they have to be connected in some way. And if Sun and Moon come from the early Full Fest origins of the franchise, then the Mimic being around at the same time would explain that connection. But there's one more detail that tells me that the Mimic has to have been around during the Full Fest era of FNAF, something that's been right under our noses for years. For a while now, we've believed that the glitch trap virus in Help Wanted 1, the virus that takes the shape of a yellow bunny rabbit and takes over Vanessa's mind, isn't actually William Afton himself, but instead a version of the Mimic program that is mimicking Afton's behavior.
No, that is the Mimic program.
In the game, we heard about Fazbear trying to keep costs down for this new game they're developing.
I mean, they sent us that stuff in the first place with no explanation, told us to scan it, said it would expedite the process so we wouldn't need to program any pathfinding ourselves. It was a budget thing, I guess. It was just junk, circuit boards and things like that. Look pretty old.
That game was Help Wanted. It's an in-universe game that takes the original FNAF games and turns them into new VR experiences, which is exactly what we learn happened to the Mimic program in The Storyteller. Quote, "It's a simple template-style software that takes previously created stories and rearranges them into new scenarios for VR, AR, and arcade games. That is what Glitch Trap is. The Mimic program, having been scanned into the system, gets a crash course in Afton's murdery tendencies."
Is that not what you literally just said?
It's a simple template-style software that takes previously created stories and rearranges them into new scenarios for VR, AR, and arcade games. That is what Glitch Trap is. The Mimic program having been scanned into the system, gets a crash course in Afton's murdery tendencies, and is now mimicking it. Hence, he appears as Afton's iconic yellow rabbit. Except there's one part of this explanation that never sat right with me. If the Glitch Trap Mimic was learning about Afton from the in-universe games of FNAF 1 to 6, then why does he take this form? Afton in all of those games, even in the 8-bit minigames, is always wearing his Springlock suit, because that was the costume he wore at Fredbear's Family Diner. But the version of the suit the Mimic shows us as Glitch Trap is a completely different different design. And at the time, we'd never seen this version before. This isn't his Springlock suit. It's a hand-sewn suit with plastic-looking facial features similar to the ones we saw on that concept art. Those suits came from Fall Fest, and so it would make sense for this hand-sewn golden rabbit suit to have also come from the same time period. But for the Mimic to have been able to copy this design, it would have to have some memory of this version of Afton in its memory banks prior to being uploaded to the Help Wanted game system. It would have to have observed Afton perform in this iconic golden rabbit costume alongside a golden singing bear.
Well, there's no proof that that costume actually canonically exists, so no.
At Fall Fest, the Mimic would have to be around during the early costume days of the franchise. Tape Girl did say the circuit boards looked pretty old after all.
It was just junk. Circuit boards and things like that. Look pretty old.
Maybe the Mimic was originally meant to mimic Afton specifically.
How can it see it if it didn't exist yet?
I'm not entirely sure of this, to be honest, but it does feel like this is where the clues might be heading. Both Fall Fest and the diner were open until 1983 after all, so they coexisted for at least 4 years, with the diner opening in 1979. And we know that Afton was performing as Spring Bonnie at the diner, so it's possible that the Mimic was part of Afton's plan to expand the business. He could literally be in 2 places at once. Eventually, the Mimic would be locked underground, with some circuit boards containing its programming set aside just in case. And when the Mimic software was finally used again to help speed up the process of a new VR game, it was shown all of those old FNAF games. And while it watched and learned, it recognized someone, William Afton, the golden rabbit from the circus, and so decided to take on the form it remembered from all those years ago, creating the monster we have spent the last 3 games and 2 DLCs trying to stop. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Okay, we're done. Good theory. Yes, great. A bunch of this stuff. I'm tired as hell. So I think this is a good stopping point. Wouldn't you guys agree? Anyways, but yeah. Those that couldn't make it, thank you. Those who couldn't, this will be uploaded later, so you can watch the archive. All right. I'll see you guys later.